All right. Hello, my loves. Welcome to this Writing Brave Mastermind testimonial video. I'm here with my client, Roisin, who just finished. We just finished the mastermind last week. So welcome. Thanks for being
Thank
here.
you. Great to be here. Thank you for inviting me to give testimony and trusting me to do a testimony.
Yes, always, always. So I wonder if we could start off, if you could share sort of why you joined the mastermind and what was the impetus that led you to be like, okay, yes, I want to do this.
Sure. Okay. So maybe to start with, I'll just introduce myself. I'm Roisin vegan. I am a mother and a human rights activist and many hats. And I wanted to join the mastermind because I had been searching for something that could help me get unstuck, basically. I had attempted to write a book several times over about 15 years. I'd written notes to myself in journals for years saying, when you write the book, say this. But I always got stuck on, nobody's going to read this. And I would shut the laptop or put the book away, and I just wouldn't look at it for maybe a year or two or three or even more. And there sort of came a point for me where I kept coming back to it and thinking, how am I going to get this over the line? Where does this fit in? Because I really felt called to write it, and I felt a really strong sense that it was part of my story. And so when a friend referred me to your website, I felt like for the first time I had seen what I was looking for articulated in a course that you could sign up for and sort of walk away with a result from. So yeah, it was great to find you online and to really click with the way you were describing the offer. And so I signed up.
Yeah. I love that so much. And I think a lot of people who come to my work and also who join the mastermind describe that same piece of like feeling like there's a calling to write the book, but needing support, right? Like you said, to get to the finish line, or even to just to start, right? To get unstuck, to kind of get the momentum flowing. And so I love that because you're like, I felt the call, but there's sort of like you have notes and you're like, no one's gonna read this. Like how, right? Like how do I kind of like get this going? So talk to us a little bit about like in your experience over the 6 months, what were some of the most valuable parts of the mastermind for you?
Sure. Well, I think that even though you feel a sense that writing a book is part of your story of your life, doesn't mean you know what it's going to look like or how you're going to get that story onto the page. And so a big part of it for me was to see myself as a writer. And I know we talk a lot in the course about stepping into our author identity. And healing creative wounds was a big part of that for me. So being able to set aside or to hear those voices that said, you know, you can't do this. Nobody's going to read your work. Nobody wants to hear what you have to say. And sort of recognize them and say, I know who you are and I know how to handle you now. That was a really valuable point for me because it allowed me to build some flow and momentum in my writing and just get the story on the page. And for me, I think the submission to the developmental editor each month was a great way to focus my mind, because I like deadlines. I do well under pressure.
Yeah.
And I think that really helped me say, okay, I'm going to get 5,000 words on the page and just see what happens. And I remember the first time I got my developmental letter back, I sort of ran down the stairs crying, saying, she liked my work. And it's sort of, you know, she thinks I'm a writer. She thinks I can do it. And that was really powerful because it was the first time I'd ever shared anything with somebody who I didn't know. So she had no reason to think anything of what I had done or said. And that was really quite a game changer, if you like, for me. It was like, okay, now I'm really going to go for it because I have some other things I want to try. And then I think the final sort of, if I had to pick a top three, my final point would be the community that we built. There was a cohesion among the group of women that I hadn't expected to find, especially in something online. And, you know, when I took the course, I was based in Switzerland. Everybody else was based around the US. And, you know, despite the miles, despite the time differences, we all sort of came together, and some of us in a very intimate way, in the way that we guided each other and the way that you supported us to learn how to support each other, if you like. So to receive each other's stories, and just let them be. And some of the wisdom that came from those conversations has been really powerful for me in building my confidence with my message for the book.
I love that so much. I'm wondering if we could talk a little bit more about working with your editor, who you were working with,
Yeah.
Sam. So, because I wanted to just tease apart sort of what you said. So I find that a lot of people share in the mastermind that one of the most impactful things is having a monthly deadline, right? The monthly deadline is up to 5,000 words. And I always tell people, right, it's not an assignment, it's a maximum. And so not everyone submits 5,000 words every month, but a lot of people, like you said, it's like, it's this impetus of like, I'm going to get 5,000 words done every single month. So there's sort of the impactfulness of having the deadline and have someone waiting for your work. And then there's also kind of the feedback that you receive. So could you talk a little bit about, right? So like I hear you saying that having someone say to you, like, yeah, like you're a writer, you can do this. I can see where this is going. So, right, there's an encouragement piece. And could you talk a little bit about maybe how some of the feedback over time kind of changed your writing or sort of directed the work in a different way than maybe you expected it to go?
Yeah, absolutely. So as I said, I've been working on this for some time, and I had a go at certain aspects of the story. And so I think one of the best things was that the first couple of submissions, some of it was not new material that I wrote there and then. It was even files that I forgot I had. But I knew all of a sudden was like, oh, this is a scene that I want to put into the book. But I wrote this like 10 years ago, and my voice has completely changed. And then other pieces I would read it and say, oh, I was really struggling with this, but I've actually written it before. And so I would sort of mix it all into a document, and I wouldn't have to be 5,000 words that all flowed neatly as a story. It could be excerpts or scenes. And Sam and I hit it off from the start and had a great rapport. So we were able to sort of leave comments in the margins saying, this goes here and that goes there. You don't know this character yet, but this is who they are. And so what that did over time was really to learn the concept of just writing forward. Don't worry about where the story's going or whether this is exactly what's going to go in your final draft. Just write what feels like it needs to come through you. And the way that that evolved was that at first I was like, why am I writing this? This isn't good. This isn't good enough. This isn't going to go in a book. But what it did over time was I started to read back my submissions and go, yeah, that scene doesn't belong in the book. Or yes, that scene does, but it needs to come before this scene. And all of a sudden it was like, you know, a game of Tetris in my mind. Everything sort of started to find its place. And then by month 6, the final month of the course, I could start to see and feel things slotting into chapters, which was really moving and powerful for me, because I was, you know, I think everybody in the course had quite a different experience. So it's not to say that that is the only thing you could get out of it is if you're at that stage in your process. But for me, I just kind of connected with the message of the book, and that then guided me forward in knowing then what wanted to come in and what wanted to stay out. And I think that was also really powerful because of the relationship that I built with Sam, again, so unexpectedly through email and 1 45-minute call per month. But yet these conversations we were having were just straight to the point, really deep, really powerful. Like, I feel like I'm using that word a lot, but there's just the best way to describe it, because it did just propel my process forward. And the evolution within just those 6 months was incredible and unexpected.
Yeah, I love that so much. And I'm just cheering you on so big. And it's interesting because as I was saying the question, I was like, oh, this isn't exactly what I wanted to ask. Because I said something like, how did the feedback kind of direct the process of the book? But what I meant was like, I feel like whenever I get feedback, I'm always like, it gives me ideas, or I'm like, oh, this is right. Like, it's just what you described of like the Tetris, like it all starts lining up. And then you describe, right, the book sort of speaking to you. And that's sort of more what I meant. So I love that you kind of brought that up, even though my question was badly worded. So,
No, but I think also like, when you would get the developmental letter back, then absolutely sparks would just start flying of like, oh, that paragraph, I actually meant this. Yes, I see now. And the developmental letter wasn't just useful in that moment. It's kind of set me up with a toolkit for writing scene, writing setting, writing flashback that I can keep referring to. And it's sort of really, I'm going to use powerful again, bringing the story through. So yeah, it's definitely on its way.
yeah, I love that so much. So talk to us about like high level. How do you feel like you kind of changed as a writer over the 6 months? You mentioned kind of the author identity piece, but I'd say high level, like what are the things that you feel like you're walking away with, or what was sort of the transformative elements for you?
Well, I had always had it in mind that the book, which is a memoir, would in some way become a platform for the work I want to do going forward in my life. And I suppose what the process has done by helping me and supporting me to connect with the message of the book is to really sort of hone in on what it is that I want to say by writing the book. And I think as a writer, what that's brought out in me is just this confidence that my writing doesn't have to be like something I do, by the light of my bedside lamp in a journal, secretive, like I think I'm the only one thinking these thoughts kind of thing. But to sort of calibrate it with a universal message.
Mm.
And then to see myself sort of, feeling a sense of, oh, I can't shoehorn that into this story. So maybe that's a whole other book.
Mm-hmm.
And feel this sense of like a part of myself coming alive again, that a part of myself that I feel has been missing, that I didn't have the confidence necessarily to say things out loud or speak my truth, as so many people do struggle with. And I think by sort of going through it from a writing perspective and as an author experience, for me, that's helped me to sort of connect with the depths of my own thoughts. So sometimes you've led us through exercises where you say, don't type this, write it down with your hand. It uses a different part of your brain. And that totally resonates with me, because when I, get a thought in my mind in the course of the day, if I try to type it, it just kind of, I'm like, oh no, that doesn't look right. But if I write, I notice I write like 5-10 pages and I just can't stop the mind process.
Yeah.
So I think as a writer, I've definitely evolved in the sense of just even thinking of myself as a writer is just sort of that first rudimentary step. But then it's just kind of this unquestioning now. It's like, well, yeah, that's just what I do. It's one of my passions. I'm a writer. Still everything else, but I'm also claimed that space that is that huge part of me that wants to communicate a message like through writing. And I've always thought of writing as like, it's no different than a painting. It's just marks on a page, but they're been made in an order and in a particular design that nobody else has ever done before. So whatever it is I put down, it's new and it's different and it's unique. And I think it'll carry a message forward that I don't know yet what that'll look like, but it feels authentic, which is, something I'm really proud of, because that's ultimately, I suppose, what I was searching for. It was the authenticity that was missing before. It was a, what do people want to hear? And now I feel as a writer, it's like, this is what I want to say.
Mm. It's so powerful. Powerful is our word of the day, but it's just, I feel
Yeah.
it. I feel it in my whole body. All right. So as we kind of come to the end of our conversation, I wonder if you could speak to, right? So I'm always really upfront about the fact that the mastermind is a big investment. It's a big investment financially. It's a big investment in terms of time. And could you
Yeah.
kind of speak to, like, on the other side of that investment and having finished the course, like, how do you feel about having invested that time and money, and kind of like, in terms of what you got out of it? Like, how does it feel kind of on the other side?
Yeah. Hmm. So I think you're right. When I first sort of saw the cost of the course, it's definitely something that's like, for me anyway, a conversation to be had.
Yeah.
My partner was very sort of very much on board with understanding what this meant to me, but he also didn't really get what it was I was going to get out of it. And I
Mm.
didn't either. I think when you read the description, something clicks and you can say, this feels right. This feels like what I'm supposed to do, but you still don't really know what it's going to bring.
Mm.
And so it is a bit of a leap of faith. But I think for me, it it feels like a long time ago that you sort of made that payment, made that transaction, and it feels, I don't know, it's difficult to answer without sounding sort of cliche, but I want anybody who's watching to understand that I really do mean it when I say, like, I feel as though this has changed my life. It just, how many of us said throughout the course, it feels so meant to be that this particular group of people came together at this time, and we were all here for each other, with many of us writing really tough stories. And those of us who might not have seemed like we were trying to say something difficult in a more nuanced way.
Mm.
And so I think for me, the investment is real, whether you need to apply for a grant, which I did, or borrow money, or whether you have the means immediately yourself. I think it's really something that it comes down to investing in yourself. And I think it was saying yes to this program, I realize as I'm talking, was my first step towards saying, I am worth this. I am worth this investment of my time, my energy, my resources, and this vision I have for how I believe my life is meant to be different than what it is now. And it really did turn out to be that kind of transformational piece that has carried me through to the other side, where I'm able to say, like, absolutely, I would do it again tomorrow, knowing what I know now about what I got out of it.
Thank you so much. Is there anything else you wanted to share that we didn't talk about yet?
I think I said most things. I suppose just on the investment point, like, I think when you read your course description for this, it's very honest about what it is. And I think that either resonates with people or it doesn't. And I think that there is a growing cohort of people that are awakening to this sense of intuition and wanting to connect with that sort of authentic side of themselves. So yeah, I suppose just to keep it alive. And I think the testimony is a great way to be able to sort of demonstrate that this is real. Real people take this course, and real people feel real emotions and get very sort of concrete, touchable results from it, in a professional sense, emotional sense, personal sense. So yeah, I think that it's been a pleasure to be a part of it.
Thank you so much, my friend.